All right, let's actually go to Pride events because I see you out at these events volunteering and fundraising,
Uh, yeah,
or
well,
mostly
yes and
just
no.
volunteering.
So it depends on if it's work Brett or if it's personal Brett.
Okay.
So work Brett is in the community with, I handle community engagement and education for our community for education and healthcare. So that puts me at tabletops and booths anywhere from business to business, casinos to Pride to every type of event, walks, runs, whatever that may look like, to have a presence and to be able to get people into care. And not always just with us, with my employer, it's with, just saying, hey, hearing their story, what are they struggling with? Do we have someone that meets the need? And if not us, then maybe it's another community partner who we partner with, or if I can get them into the right stream, then I feel
Hmm.
good about my day and my job. And my employer knows that. It's not always, coming to us as a revenue stream. It just goes, oh no, we don't have what you need. Or we do, but it's going to take a whole lot longer. Or you don't have the insurance, or you don't have whatever. So how about over here? Let's go to DAP Health. Let's go to Desert Oasis. Let's go somewhere else that is going to be able to meet your need immediately. Um, and there's some great partners in our valley that we partner with. And then there's the personal Brett that is non-work, and I try to completely separate that and take off any logo and all the things I have. And they know that, and I'm very transparent with work. Like I work on blue zones and other stuff that is part of active transportation, which I've been involved with for 20 some years of cycling, hiking, pedestrian access to walking, shade structures, all those kind of things to make it a more vibrant, active, healthy community. And those are
Hmm.
things I'm passionate about, and or healthcare. So they all kind of intersect, thankfully for me. And my work allows me to intersect those kind of components. But when I'm meeting the public, I try to be very clear about which side, and if I do interviews, it's like, which side am I representing? So as to keep it very transparent of this is Brett, and I do Facebook still only for fundraising, for which was just the end of AIDS life cycle, and there'll be other cycling or things, and people support me and fundraise. They're supporting me. They're not necessarily supporting, well, they are supporting the cause in some way. Obviously, they wouldn't donate to me if they didn't somewhat believe in the cause, but
Okay.
it's all about them supporting me for the most part.
Is this something that sort of grew out of the work that you do, the volunteering and the personal fundraising?
Yeah, and it's always allowed me to be visible and to be out and about and to kind of be who I am. And I did that when, I moved to the Valley, good Lord, in December of 2005, uh, to open a business, which was a, juice and smoothie franchise and this whole thing. And right before the first recession, and
Oh,
lost all that, 3 years later, because that's how, business worked at that time with, debt structure and other stuff. But yeah, we moved out here for, to create, a system and a business and gave up corporate. What it did is we were out physically at schools, grade schools, community events, that with our product, giving it out, doing stuff, engaging with people. And so I've always kind of done that as a volunteer. My parents were highly, highly involved as volunteering in the Rhododendron Society and craft fairs for my mother and other stuff. So I was always involved in those, setting up tables, bringing stuff in, loading out. So that was just been my whole life since a child. You know.
are you an only child?
No, I have a brother who's 66,
Oh,
and
okay.
battling addiction and many, many other things that are now the on my slate now that my father has passed. Um, as we know,
Hmm.
is not a parental role, but a financial structured parental role, if you will, which is challenging. And as any of you see me some days at the gym, is taking up my lifeblood at the moment. But that's just the nature of the beast. You know. But
Hmm.
thankfully, I have a kind of a chosen son who's a childhood friend's son, and his father's no longer with us, but his mother and I are best friends. And he is 22, and like as we've talked, he's like my son, and he refers to me as his uncle, which is the most endearing thing ever, to his
That's cool.
girlfriend recently, and his college graduation, and it just makes me, like you do when we talk about your, son, and it's like, how do you process that when you can't be with them every day, you know? But they wouldn't.
Yeah,
want
unless they're living in the room right next to you.
well,
Because
right, there is that, and and he would not want to. But we do, we thankfully we do FaceTime, we do other stuff, and he just laughs.
it's kind of amazing. I never knew, because I just couldn't envision it at the time before Leo came along, what it would do to my life. And all wonderful. It's all positive, amazing things. But it also, in the way that I view life, has changed just by having this kid around.
Yeah.
You just seeing it through their eyes. They're experiencing it, and they're doing, and falling or winning, and you seeing
The struggle,
how they,
it's and then you vacation with it. I don't know. It's funny. We all kind of vacation together. We do stuff as a family. We love obviously college football and different stuff that we always go and do stuff for bowl games and different things. And then it's always him and his college roommates and me, and then or a friend, and then we are sharing a house, and then you're just living that life where they're in the next room, you're sharing a bathroom, life. They get to see you as a parent, but also a friend, and in every phase of whatever, which is good, because there's complete transparency, and I am very much with him and his college roommates. 5 of them living in a house together, and it's just funny. It's like back in frat days and whatever, in my college days of like, oh my dear God. But the conversations and the things you had, I just had a fabulous conversation with one of his roommates who's going to graduate this next spring. And he's like, he used the 4-letter word, which I absolutely hate, which is just. He was describing where he's working as a bartender or doing some other stuff. And he goes, I'm just a bartender. And that kind of shit. And I may have had a drink. And so I just looked at him and I said, you got to get that out of your head. Anyway, we're just, all of a sudden we went into this deep weeds, and he was very reflective, and it's like, oh, I never thought of that. A bartender actually has got a huge amount of skill sets. And I said, you're the only person in this house of the rest of your college roommates that can actually go and work anywhere you want and will probably always get a job.
Yeah.
I said, because as a side hustle while you're waiting for your career job, I go, you're a bartender. You have a skill set that, you'll be able to have income. They'll be looking at you.
But I remember that, though. Yeah. I remember that being young and not feeling like whatever skill I had was usable.
Oh, right. And the other was like, oh, I need to move home because my mom will be really upset if I don't live in the same town and work. And I'm like, oh my God, no. I go, that'll be sad. I remember that when I lived in San Francisco. My mother was so sad, and I was sad. And then, 6 months later, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. But and then you can go move home in 2 years or do whatever. If that is your place, you'll know that's your place. But until you experience somewhere else, come up with your story, because it's like I wanted to step out of my bounds. I wanted to just be who I am. I wanted to be transparent, and it was fun. And, it's like, good. Those are all skill sets.
It's interesting because a lot of that kind of thinking doesn't happen until we're older.
Right. Right.
Like, oh, I'm going to do something that makes me uncomfortable, and I'm going to be okay with being uncomfortable.
Right.
And
it's just
until I get it.
Right. And that's our world of today. People, it's like, oh my God, even in news media, not to go back on politics, but I always laugh. And it's like I said, where the media jumps on is when you defend something so viciously, defending whatever you did that may not have been the norm. That is their story, and that's their storyline, and they always are trying to think that. But if you came out and said, oh yeah, I did that naked calendar because I thought it was fun, and hey, that was a time and a place. I was 22.
Yeah.
Great. Then there's no story.
Yeah, exactly.
Your story, but they're not going to cover it because now it has no. You're fine with it. Like, oh no, I'm fine with that. Or if you had an arrest, or you had, a DUI, it's like, I had someone had that. And I'm like, you use that. I said, if you learned from it and you grew from it, and it's a point of time and you haven't done it again, you know, own it, and just, kind of acknowledge the growth you had from whatever those moments are.
Yeah.
And if you're interviewing for something, or talking to someone, or a relationship, or whatever, and they don't get that, then that's probably not the right job or the right relationship for you. And that's a telltale sign, because they're not embracing who you are as your growth, or your individuality, or your transparency, or your acceptance.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything, all the mistakes and whatever that you did or made, that's all just part of who you are. That's what created the person that's standing in front of you right now.
Right. It's always where where it goes on for way long. Somebody tries to defend whatever that was, and they don't own it. And then you're like, dude, this is just going on way too long.
Yeah.
Just say who you are and just own it.